Hello everyone! I'm glad to see you all. And today we have a basic meeting, a basic lecture. Today we're going to talk about what psychosomatics actually is, what kind of beast it is, how it works, why it might be useful for us, and in what context it can be helpful. And today I want to give you 2 strategies that actually destroy us, so you can take a look at yourself from the outside. So there will be a theoretical part, and there will be answers to your questions, specifically about your illnesses. How do you like this plan? Give a thumbs up, and I want to start today's lecture with a metaphor. Imagine a person. Let's take the context of an office, like a system. There's an office, people work there, and there's one person who works, but his work gets taken away from him. He has to work on weekends now. He has to work all the time. He works while others seem to be resting, but he doesn't get any rest. Over time, tension builds up in him. He starts doing his job worse, and then his boss comes to him and says, "What's wrong with you? Maybe your chair is uncomfortable. Maybe you need to change your chair." They change his chair. It's a little easier for him. But he still has breakdowns. He still can't manage. In the end, the whole office starts working poorly. Everyone gathers together, but no one understands anything. Why is this happening? Other colleagues nearby start doing his work, but they can't handle it either because they have their own work to do. And eventually, at some point, this office falls apart. That's it. This business shuts down. All because they didn't understand the real reason that what this person actually needed was to rest so he could recover. And this metaphor is actually very telling when we don't understand the reason for what's happening to us, what kind of conflict we have. And we mistakenly try to suppress some of our symptoms, sometimes with pills, sometimes with ointments, sometimes by simply doing nothing, and sometimes even by doing things that are just plain foolish. Meanwhile, the body suffers. The body is stuck in this survival mechanism, in this strategy. Who likes this metaphor? Yes? Yes. And this is exactly what happens to you in life. And now, before I move on to strategies, let's get on the same page about psychosomatics. What do you actually know about psychosomatics? Let's do it this way. I believe, I practice right. If you are someone who knows, believes, or practices, or if you are just getting acquainted with it, or if you don't believe in it at all and just find it interesting but think it doesn't work, that it has no effect whatsoever, just write who you are here. If there are skeptics here, that's totally fine too. But first, I'll explain what psychosomatics is actually useful for, how it can help us. But to start, let's break down 3 layers. What kinds of psychosomatics actually exist? The first category is when a person has some kind of pain, some kind of discomfort, something hurts, there are some discharges, there are some symptoms. Maybe they're tired, maybe they can't sleep, maybe something else. But when they go to specialists, to doctors and so on, the doctors just shrug and say, "No, everything should be fine with you. It's not clear what's going on. You seem to be absolutely healthy. There are no obvious changes, at least no organic ones." But the person feels bad. They're not making it up. They really do feel bad. They really do have some kind of dysfunction. So this category, by the way, if you relate to it, wave your hand, shows us that the person really has pure psychosomatics. The body is actually screaming about it. I need help. I need to cope. And probably the first person who started writing about this was Dr. Freud, the psychoanalyst. He came up with the term conversion disorders. When a person seems healthy, everything is fine organically. Doctors can't find anything. But the person is ill, they really do have a functional disorder, they have pain, or even paralysis, or hearing loss, or they can't see anything at all. And this is not something he made up himself. It means there is some trauma in his unconscious that shuts off this function. And there is some kind of positive intention in this, perhaps to be pitied, to be loved, or to avoid dealing with certain tasks in one's life. For example, yes, as I go on with the conversation and explain, you'll start to understand how this works. For instance, when we talk about cystitis in a woman, it could be a conflict over marking territory, meaning someone is invading my space, maybe some relatives are coming over, or maybe a man is behaving rudely and the woman can't defend her boundaries. Or it could be a feeling like, I don't want to sleep with this man or have a relationship. And in that case, it will be very difficult for the woman to cure her cystitis, because, as it's fashionable to say now, there is a certain secondary gain involved. Why? Because there is a deeper problem that needs to be addressed, but the person can't solve it. She either lacks the resources, the opportunity, or she is afraid. And then what does the psyche do to help? It creates some kind of symptom, and it's like, well, I can't fulfill, let's say, my marital duty because, sorry, I have this issue. When I get better, then we'll talk, then as they say, we'll cook porridge together. But for now, I can't. I need to get treated. And as you understand, a person can keep treating themselves, and this isn't just about cystitis. It could be absolutely any symptom. It could be anxiety, it could be a panic attack, yes, as one of the consequences. This is when a symptom acts as a defense mechanism. Is that clear? I'm explaining it now, so give me a thumbs up. So, can you hear me better now? Yes, in the Telegram channel. And I want to remind you right away, for those who missed it, didn't see it, were on vacation, or maybe your phone was being repaired, the registration for the program has started. This is a mini course on psychosomatics about what the body is saying. Yes, the body speaks. This is a program where I explain in simple, accessible language what psychosomatics is, how it works, and I provide practical exercises. You will have a curator assigned to you, a specialist in psychosomatics, and there will be a group chat. So it's going to be an active environment where you can experience a before and after transformation in just 4 days. We start on Monday. Yes, the number of spots is limited, and right now, you can join this program for just 1,900 rubles, 2,000 rubles. So you can just go there. Spend that money on who knows what, and your life won't change, or you can come, invest it, and transform yourself in 4 days. What awaits you? You'll have 3 lectures. In these lectures, first, I'll talk about who actually developed psychosomatics, what these people have given us, and for example, I just told you a little bit about Freud and how we can then use this knowledge in our lives. In the second lesson, I explain in detail how emotions transfer into the body and cause illnesses, because not every emotion transfers into the body. There is a specific mechanism for this. And when we understand this mechanism, we can prevent it and at the very least avoid getting sick or recover from an illness we already have. And in the third lesson, I will explain the 7 steps. How to recover from an illness is not just 1 step, it's 7 steps. How to get out of a state of illness based on my 10 years of psychosomatic practice and 7 years running my school. This is what we constantly encounter with our students and in my personal consultations. When you understand these steps, life becomes simpler. It's like you can finally breathe, you gain some understanding of what's really happening. On the 4th day, we'll have a webinar. In the webinar, I'll give you a summary, what each organ is telling you, what conflict it's related to, and how to resolve these conflicts. You'll already know how. That's the plan for these 4 days of your life, which will change you forever, before and after. Right now, you can join for 1,900 rubles. Super. And I'll continue. So, the first situation is when no one finds anything, but you really feel bad. That's a sign that your body is screaming, like a red warning light, help, save me, you need to figure it out. The second layer is when a person actually has some diagnosis. Today, I will definitely answer your questions and highlight what it means in your life. For example, cystitis, thrush, gastritis, migraines. So, there is a real diagnosis, some kind of disorder in the body. You're seeing a doctor, getting treatment, you have some kind of therapy, but either you have relapses or there's no progress at all, you can't fully recover, or you're frankly told that it's incurable. What does this mean? It means that there's already a psychosomatic component in the body. That is, before changes occur at the cellular or tissue level, you were already experiencing some kind of conflict. Psychosomatics is when I can't cope with something in my life psychologically. For example, let's take a man who can't digest his relationship with his wife. This is a real case. He can't accept it, can't process it. She constantly nags him, tells him he should do things differently, and somehow things never work out for him. But he can't stand up to her, can't defend his boundaries. He just suppresses all these emotions and feelings. There are men like that, imagine. And he suppresses them because that's the strategy he developed in childhood. As a child, his father was always yelling and making a fuss. So the child internalized the scenario. I can't be an aggressor like my dad. I need to be soft, flexible. I need to negotiate. So he just suppresses all the shouting and arguments. But inside he doesn't accept it. He feels injustice. He feels rejection. And how does his body react? The mucous membrane of his stomach reacts to this unresolved conflict. And now, when he simply thinks, I have a bad stomach, it doesn't help him. Neither pills, nor medicine, nor any other treatments. It's only when he connects with his emotions and feelings, what am I feeling right now, that things begin to change. Fear, I feel irritation, I feel anger. In other words, it's a set of emotions. What is triggering this in my life? It's my wife, it's these conversations we have. What does this remind me of in my life? It reminds me of the story with my mom and dad. Why can't I do this right now? Because I have this kind of belief. Everything I'm describing now, these frameworks, we will go through together in the Body Speaks course. Already next week on Monday. That's why you absolutely need to be there, so you don't miss this important information, because my program only runs once a year. The next time will be in a year. And when he understands this, he starts to calm down. His mucous membrane starts to recover, the therapy he's undergoing begins to help him more effectively, and he notices that he becomes less irritable, less angry, his stomach hurts less, and after a while, the pain disappears completely. And when he comes back for a follow-up examination with his gastroenterologist 6 months later, the doctor might say, "You have a very healthy mucous membrane now," meaning there's no more redness, no active lesions that could have developed into stomach ulcers. So, what benefits does he get? First, his body has recovered. Second, his relationship with his wife has improved. Where before his wife might have yelled or maybe just spoken to him in a certain way, now he reacts neutrally to it and can change the conversation. He switches topics. In other words, he doesn't take those feelings upon himself anymore because that trauma no longer controls him. So the second bonus is improved relationships. Would you like to have such results in your life too, both physically and emotionally? If yes, write yes in the chat. Is rheumatoid arthritis also psychosomatic? Of course, Dina. So, once again, the first layer is when there is no diagnosis, but there is discomfort. The second layer is when there is a diagnosis. Just like you wrote, yes, rheumatoid arthritis. If we knew 100% of the causes of this disease, we would be able to cure it 100%. So you come in, they give you a pill, and you're like, wow, everything's fine, the pain goes away. But there's something deeper. There are psychosomatic components. That's exactly why medication alone doesn't work completely. And when you already have experience with the illness, 5 years, 10 years, for example, we work in a comprehensive way, meaning psychosomatics does not replace doctors, it does not replace medicine, but rather complements it. Because a doctor shouldn't have to deal with your personal situations. And when we talk about rheumatoid arthritis, Dina, please write which specific joints are affected for you. There are several conditions here. The first is self-devaluation, thinking that there's something wrong with me, that I'm somehow bad. Let me give you a specific example of rheumatoid arthritis. This is a psychologist, a young woman, and she constantly engages in self-examination and self-devaluation, thinking, I want to do certain things, I want to perform, I want to open up, but I forbid myself because I consider myself stupid. There's something wrong with me, I don't know how. And there's a mother who constantly triggers her into this state, telling her, you're incapable, you can't do it, there's something wrong with you. And after these conversations, she actually has an episode. Her joints hurt, she can't get up, it's truly excruciating pain. And with these kinds of conditions, the earlier we start working on them, the better. When she comes in and starts working, the first thing she does is figure out what feelings she lives with every day. What is it? Is it self-devaluation? Is it anger at herself? Or is it a deep sense of guilt that she can't take certain specific actions, steps, or make certain gestures? The second point is that she looks for triggers. Maybe it's her mother, sometimes it could be a conversation with her husband, sometimes it's something at work. She starts to explore what she feels in those situations and begins to uncover it. And third, she looks for the underlying deep conflict, using my techniques and practices to find out when it started, when it originated, and then begins to work through it. And what does her state turn into as a result? It goes into a very good remission. In other words, the pain gradually becomes less and less. And now, for several years, she has almost no pain at all. She lives, she works, she leads a full life, and her rheumatoid arthritis indicators are very good. But this is work, this is practice. It's not just about doing one meditation or simply understanding something. You really have to work through all these bodily reactions. Because if the pain had appeared for the first time, a person would have immediately assumed that, according to psychosomatics, this is a movement conflict. Yes, I am forbidding myself. This is devaluation. This is a feeling of guilt. And if he had worked on it right away, the recovery would have been faster and he would have recovered. But if this has been accumulating for years, then of course, time is needed for this. It's clear you have to spend time. The left hand and shoulder. So again, Jivudina writes, why exactly the left hand? Why exactly the left shoulder? What does this mean in your life? Who is standing to your left? Who is this person? What are you unable to do? let go, push away, or make some gesture toward this person. This is what we talk about when we mean the hand. If we're talking about the joint, then I feel like a bad wife, maybe a bad partner, a bad daughter, a bad mother. Yes, and this is what eats away at you. What is it about? And look, when we talk about autoimmune processes, there is always this aggression toward oneself, as if I am also, on top of everything, declaring war on myself. Write down what resonates with you. So this is the second point. This is when there is a diagnosis, but there is also a psychosomatic component, and in order to recover fully and completely, it needs to be addressed. And the third aspect is when, let's say, the illness begins after some kind of trauma, a car accident, a fight, or after some kind of surgery. For example, a woman starts having panic attacks and develops a phobia after surgery, because during the operation, this fear took root in her. As a result, she can't live peacefully, can't calm down until she comes to our program, works through this fear, lets it go, and then she finally starts sleeping peacefully. So there are three aspects: pure psychosomatics, psychosomatics with a psychosomatic component, and the psyche itself when initially there was some kind of physical injury or disturbance. Is that clear? Now let me tell you about the two strategies I wanted to share with you today. Strategy number one: our emotions, our thoughts, and our body work as a single whole. We can't separate them. Just remember a moment in your life when you wake up and your body is tense, your body hurts, there's some kind of discomfort, and your whole day is bad. You can't feel joy, you can't relax, and there are constantly negative thoughts. Do you agree? Give a thumbs up or a plus sign if you do. Also, imagine you're in a state of anger, for example, or you feel powerless in life. You can't cope with something, can't do something. Maybe you feel like you're not capable of something, or there are some obstacles. That anger sits inside you, and you start treating those around you, your loved ones, through that state of anger. You start snapping at them, getting angry at them, because that anger is already inside you. Your body tenses up, your thoughts are negative. Why? Because there's already a certain emotion present. Likewise, when there are certain negative thoughts, like anxiety, worry, the feeling that something bad is going to happen, or for example, the need to constantly control everything and keep it in your head, this makes your head tense, your neck tense, and from that you have negative thoughts, and of course your body reacts. So emotions, thoughts, and the body are all about the same thing, but at the root of it all is a conflict. We never think, we never feel, we never react for no reason. There are already some underlying reasons for this reaction inside us. And that's why the first strategy is that when we stay in such a state for a long time, what happens to us? The body's resources become depleted. The immune system suffers because you constantly have to live in a state of racing. This is the metaphor I wanted to tell you about, the one I actually started with. Our sleep gets disrupted. And if your sleep is disrupted, you can't recover at night. And so every day you get a little less sleep, and after a while you just fall apart because your body simply doesn't have the chance to recover. You have no energy, there's a constant sense of apathy. Why? Plus, you're not getting enough sleep, you're constantly tense, and on top of that, you're lost in life. Because when we're in conflict, we don't know what to do. We're afraid to make a decision, we're afraid to take a step, to take any action. And it all builds up and you keep finding yourself here. You devalue yourself, and in this way, if you stay in this state for a long time, your body starts to fall apart. If you're in this state, type 1 right now, if you realize that what's been happening to you isn't just some stressful situation, it's been going on for years. Your psyche just can't handle it anymore. It's not coping. The adaptation mechanisms. Yes. And that's why the fastest way to get out of this state is to stop and start grounding yourself, to start understanding your reactions, to start understanding your emotions. You need knowledge here. Once again, starting Monday, we will begin acquiring this knowledge together. Be sure to join us. And there is strategy number 2. First, it's clear that your resources get depleted. Strategy number 2 is when each organ, each one, has a specific conflict, and there is something in your life you can't cope with, and your body tries to help you deal with it. Now, I will go through your symptoms and highlight what they mean in your life, but please respond to me, please answer me so that we can have a conversation, so that we can interact. Well, Dina doesn't want to answer me, fine. Now, I just wanted to take a look. You wrote something here, I missed it. There were some questions. Here, Katya writes, eczema on my hands, the right one is gone, the left one isn't. Is this somehow related to my mother? It's not necessarily related to your mother. It might be, or it might not. In psychosomatics, it's not as simple as saying the shoulder is about the mother, the skin is about the mother, the eyes are about the grandmother, the heels are about the grandfather. No, it doesn't work like that. If you read that somewhere, it's more of a marketing trick to confuse you. Our body isn't just some kind of phone or gadget where everything is the same for everyone. We're all different. We have different feelings, different emotions. The psychosomatics I work with, for example, is based on biological decoding, which comes from Dr. Hamer. There we talk more about embryology, how each tissue forms and accordingly what needs we are trying to meet. So it could be related to anything. What's important is the specific context. And so when we talk about the skin, again, the skin has several layers. There are 3 layers, the epidermis, the dermis, and the subcutaneous fat tissue. And they are actually responsible for different types of conflicts. What you're describing, eczema, affects the top layer, the epidermis. This is usually a conflict of separation, of parting, when I lack warmth or sensation. Support, attention, love, even the touch, the sense of safety, self-acceptance. That's why my skin is now screaming about this. There was some event, a separation, someone you lost, someone who left your life, or maybe you got angry at yourself, lost yourself. Maybe someone died, which is something really serious, or maybe you just broke up, or it was just a phone conversation. So, with whom did you lose this important contact, this sense of safety? A sense of security? And once again, I want to emphasize that what really matters is practice, not just logically thinking about this or that, because our brain blocks the information we have. If we were to constantly dwell on all the pain in our lives, we simply wouldn't be able to handle it. That's why there's a mechanism called repression. Our feelings and emotions get pushed out of our awareness. That's why your skin is telling you that you've lost contact with a loved one. What can you say? I feel accepted and loved. I have 100% enough love. Go ahead and just say this phrase out loud. And then take a moment to write down any thoughts or feelings that come to mind immediately after you have said it. Oksana asks, if there is a reaction to dry air, the context is important here. But the air really can be dry, and in that case you don't need to work on yourself, but rather change your location somehow. Sometimes a banana, just a banana, can help. But if everything was fine for you, everything was good, for example, in the conditions you were in, and then suddenly out of nowhere you start having a reaction, then we can assume that now the air, or maybe not the air, whatever it is acting as a trigger that reminds you of unprocessed emotions. This is something very important I wanted to say, as Katya writes that she feels better, that your skin is telling you that there is some state, some feelings from the past that have not been fully experienced. But if it repeats at the same time, in the same place, then this tells us that it's a trigger, a reminder, meaning that at that time, some stressful situations once occurred, and that's why it's triggering you now. We will cover this, how the body speaks, in the second lesson, where we'll go through the specific mechanics of how emotions manifest in the body. Once we understand this together, we also understand how to get out of it, which is why this is so important for you. So for example, hemorrhoids and loose stools after every time you eat pasta. Well, hemorrhoids and pasta don't go together. You kind of wrote it a bit off here. Loose stools could happen. Maybe there's a lot of oil or something else, you could assume that. But hemorrhoids from pasta, no, that doesn't cause it, right? If we're talking about hemorrhoids, Irina, it's not about some kind of conflicts. Conflict number 1, the rectum is the last part of our gastrointestinal tract, so it relates to aspects of life where I'm holding on to something, afraid to let go. It's some old, dirty, nasty situation that I just can't get rid of. I should let it go, forgive, not hold on, but I can't. I'm afraid something might happen. So there's disgust, there's fear, and of course, there's anger, maybe even some resentment. There's something in your life you can't let go of, something old, not fresh, something from the past. And the second point is the conflict of identity, where I have lost myself, who I am. I have no place in the family, no place in life. I don't know who I am. I've lost my place. Maybe there was a breakup with a man, and after that, I lost some of my value, my identity. Maybe there was a quarrel with my parents. What is it about for you? Write about it. So, Victoria is asking about breast cancer. Is this about you specifically? Because I only talk about the topic relevant to those who are here in the live stream so that we can have some kind of interaction. Someone writes that their throat is constantly inflamed. I don't know honestly whether it's a man or a woman. It's not clear. So look, if your throat is constantly inflamed, let's learn psychosomatic logic together. Why do we need the throat? First, it's for speaking, like I'm doing with you right now, sharing information. Second, it's for shouting, calling for help. Help, good people. Someone is doing something to me. Third, of course, it's for receiving. We eat food and it passes through. From this context, we have three key conflicts. The first is fear, which tightens the throat, shouting, calling for help. Something happened, some kind of fear that literally tightens my throat. The second conflict is when I wanted to say something. Someone was dumping all sorts of filth or negativity on me, but I stay silent. If this becomes chronic, I keep staying silent. Someone is berating me, maybe at work, maybe at home, and I just keep quiet. I have to be good. I have to endure. God forbid I tell all these idiots off. I just endure it. But my throat can't handle this constant inflammatory process. So it's either fear that you can't get out of, or the state where you can't speak up, or it's the moment when you want to express yourself, to open up, to share, to show yourself. And the next point is the so-called chunk conflict, when I can't accept something. For example, relatives come to visit, or I'm presented with a fait accompli and told, this is how it is and there's no other way. There are circumstances that, as it seems to me, I can't change and I don't want to agree with them. It's literally like a bone stuck in my throat. There's even a saying about that. It's stuck with me. What does this resonate with for you? Please write about it, don't stay silent. Yes, if this is about you, let's talk. If we're talking about breast cancer, this is a very deep, very long-lasting conflict. What do we need the breast for? First, to feed the child, to calm the child. When a child drinks milk, they calm down. A certain substance is released. So, what does this mean in our lives? In psychosomatics, it's called discord in the nest. First, it's when there's a division, dividing an inheritance, dividing an apartment, dividing a house. There was something shared, a kind of nest, and now we're splitting it up. Maybe it's a divorce. The second point is when there's terrible anxiety. I'm worried about someone, my son, my husband, some relative. I need to feed them, to calm them. Or there's some kind of betrayal. For example, I'll tell you a story. A woman with breast cancer had this experience. She hired a young man at work, treated him like a grandson. He was young enough to be her grandson, and he ended up stealing the entire database and leaving. That's a betrayal. She felt as if a close person, like a child, had betrayed and deceived her. Very shocking, unexpected. When we talk about oncology, it's not just some kind of stress. It's something that either lasted for years or was very intense. For example, another woman's story. She had breast cancer, and for about 10 years she had a lover and a husband who didn't love her. She and her husband were in the process of divorce, unable to divide their house, blaming each other. That's division and anxiety. What about you? Write right away. What resonates with you? Yes, Victoria. How do you understand secondary gain? Maybe you don't have a secondary gain. Why do you need to understand it? Yes, worrying about the health of loved ones, about their well-being, whose health exactly. Be specific, write whose health you are worried about. You need to give your relatives the right to live as they want. Stop taking everything upon yourself. This is a very important point. Who else has this in their life? When we take on someone else's problems, we worry that they won't cope, that they can't manage, and we feel we must get involved, we must help, we must save, we must do something, but we don't owe anyone anything, and we can't change another person's life. But when we get involved, this anxiety destroys us from the inside. Here, you need to stop and ask yourself, why am I so anxious about others? Why do I think they can't handle things? Why do I worry about my husband and my mom? It's just a kind of habit. And as you wrote, worrying doesn't help at all. Any emotion should always end in action. Fear, anger, and so on should result in action. We'll have a webinar called The Body Speaks, where I'll talk about all the conflicts in our body, and we'll discuss in detail that everything should end in action. If I worry about my husband, how can I help him? Not by solving his problems for him, but by saying, I believe in you. What's your husband's name? Vasya, Petya, I don't know, Anatoly. I believe in you. You're the best husband. You're awesome. You'll succeed. If I worry about my mom, should I worry about her? It's her life. She managed without you before. How can I help her? If I can help, I will. If not, there's nothing I can do. Do what you can, and for the rest, live your own life. The best help for parents is to live a full life for yourself, because parents are happy when their children are happy. When children are unhappy, the whole system falls apart. Is that clear? So, how can you get out of stress? What are the symptoms? How can you get rid of it? Look, this isn't something logical. It requires practice. Starting Monday, we'll have 3 days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then a webinar, so 4 days in total. We'll be practicing together. Come and practice with us. 1,900 is a price absolutely anyone can afford, because I can tell you what to do, but you won't actually do it, since practice and theory are different things. Do you agree? All right, let's see here. Irina is writing to us. Should I answer? A big old fear of being left without money and food, right? Irina, and we both understand here that this is more of an irrational fear. Let's be honest, these days, yes, theoretically, we could end up without money or food, but in most cases, 90% of the time, we will have both money and food. This suggests that there is an old, unresolved emotion at play. For example, maybe you had a poor childhood, there wasn't enough food, there wasn't enough money, your parents were always arguing, and as a small child, you internalized this scenario. Now, as an adult woman, you know you have certain skills, certain talents, you know how to do things, but still, this fear holds you back and manifests in your body. So this is about working through these old scenarios. Or it could be a generational scenario. Maybe your family went through dispossession, famine, or something else, and now this resonates within you. So there are 2 strategies for working with this. First, you need to work through this specific conflict with the help of your unconscious. Again, as I said, we will be doing this together next week. Second, you need to start taking confident steps forward in life, figuring out what you can do and what you will always be paid for. In fact, I have an entire module called Psychosomatics of Money, where we spend a whole month working on this fear. The first half of the month, the first 2 weeks, we work through this fear. The second 2 weeks, we build confidence and identify which steps in life can bring us that confidence. Marina, please accept my condolences. Your son passed away? That's what happened. What could this mean? Psychosomatics is not fortune-telling. How would I know what it could mean? You need to talk to the person, you need to know the diagnosis, and so on. And right now, even if we figure it out, it won't help, because the person won't come back. That's one thing. The second point, how can you help the parents? Well, you can't really help the parents unless you have specialized training to help people. As an ordinary person, you can only offer support, but they need more qualified help, right? Sometimes such things happen, and that's exactly why I say that we have a kind of paradox right now. Let's think about it together. On the one hand, medicine has made huge advances. We have antibiotics, we have hormone therapy, so the diseases that used to kill us, we now treat in 3 days. We know this perfectly well. But at the same time, there are some chronic processes, some misunderstood autoimmune processes that we can't cure. Neither hormone therapy nor other treatments help. Why is that? Because here, the issue isn't about medication, it's about the environment a person lives in, what's happening to them. The sooner we start addressing this, the sooner we start figuring it out, the better results we'll have. For example, viruses, HPV viruses, often a conflict comes to me, but the issue isn't the conflict itself, it's what the person is living through. 2 suppressed emotions, for instance. Yesterday I had a meeting with my graduates, those studying for a diploma as psychosomatics consultants. If anyone wants to become a consultant, you can come to me and learn. Yesterday the girls were sharing stories saying that participants worked for just 2 weeks on their emotional feelings, took new tests, and the results were different. No more HPV viruses. It seems like magic, like a miracle. How can that be? It can't be, but it actually can. And not just that, over 10 years I've seen a lot, and a lot really does change. The point is, what seems like a miracle to us is actually not a miracle at all. It's just ordinary things. It's only because we've been told it's impossible. But everything that happens in my body doesn't just happen for no reason. Every day we feel things, we react to life in some way, and our emotions, our feelings, our conflicts, there's certain hormonal cocktails that affect us. Our body isn't just some machine where you can just oil it or do something. So when we talk about medicine, we've really learned how to change the oil, swap out different parts, different organs in our body, in our machine, and that's great news. But we've lost the connection, the contact with ourselves, with being alive. We need to learn to handle our emotions, to work with ourselves, and we're not taught this in school. We have to acquire it ourselves. Yes, so Antonina writes, since last night my left calf hurts, maybe veins or something else. Look, I'll say it again, psychosomatics isn't witchcraft. We're not doing magic here. If something hurts, it doesn't mean you have to work on your grandfather or something else. When we talk about pain, the causes can be completely different. So when you go to a doctor, they'll tell you it's the blood vessels or the nerve or maybe something under the skin or something else. Then you understand which organ or tissue is involved, and then together with psychosomatics, we can analyze it. But just guessing what it could be is like shooting in the dark, and it won't have any effect. Herpes on the lips, this is a favorite topic. It seems like, well, you don't die from herpes on the lips, but when it happens all the time, it drains your energy, your resources, your opportunities. I remember I had a period when I constantly had herpes. It kept coming out. There were certain moments. At that time in my life, I wasn't saying what I wanted to say. There were some dirty, unpleasant situations in my life. So, the first thing you need to do if you have herpes on your lips is calm down. Tell yourself you're now in the recovery phase. Don't wind yourself up thinking, I have a virus, now I'm doomed. The second thing is to look at what happened in the past few days when we talk about herpes yesterday, the day before, during the week. Where did I not say something? Where was I irritated? Where was there maybe a dirty, nasty situation? It could be a kiss, it could be words, it could be how you perceived a situation. You need to process that stress, live through those feelings. If you want to get rid of herpes once and for all, you need to go deeper, look at where the conflict started. But even if you just take these simple steps I mentioned, live through the feelings you have now, believe me, your herpes will heal in 1 to 2. Well, 1 to 2 is optimistic, 5 to 7 days, about 5 to 7 days, because there's a cycle, about 5 weeks on average, and everything will be fine. But when we don't deal with it, we just put on a cyclovir or take pills, we're not evolving, we're not changing. Do you agree with me? Wave your hand if you do. So, Olechka, come on Tuesday. We'll be working through this situation in the Body Speaks program. As for the earlier questions, I don't know, Victory, what they were. So the key idea I wanted to share with you today is that psychosomatics helps us be the first to be healthy, to understand what's happening in our lives, what exactly we're reacting to, and that means managing our lives. So many people live with someone they don't love, work at a job they don't like, and feel stuck in circumstances simply because they don't actually manage their emotions and feelings. We even have statistics. People come to us with illnesses, but when they work with psychosomatics, their relationships improve. Their marriage, sleep, sex, interactions with children, communication with the world around them, all of it gets better. Friends, thank you for today's broadcast. We're going to wrap up now. We have 5 minutes left. Please write down the main idea you took away from our meeting today. Once again, I want to remind you that on Monday, we're starting the mini course, The Body Speaks. This is your chance to wake up, to become aware, to look at what's happening in your life and learn how to manage your own state. On the first day, we'll talk about who has influenced psychosomatics, which ideas are important for us, and how we can change. On the second day, I'll explain the mechanism of how emotions manifest in the body, and you'll practice this technique. After that, you won't get sick anymore. On the third day, I'll share the 7 steps to resolve conflict, the 7 steps to overcome any illness. Plus, we'll have a webinar where I'll give you a detailed summary, what each organ is responsible for, what each system is responsible for. That's our plan. Your life will completely change in just 4 days. There will be plenty of practical exercises, and there will be detailed lessons And I want to emphasize that the webinar will be completely live. So Oksanochka, to be clear, the webinar will absolutely be live. Yes. Let me answer this as well. Delayed periods came up during the practices, and there was a question about polycystic ovary syndrome. I don't quite understand this part. A delay in periods, first of all, it could simply be due to current chronic stress, which leads to hormonal imbalances, so you need to work with your current emotions. Secondly, there may currently be fears related to pregnancy, relationships, or self-fulfillment as a woman, and that's why the body becomes blocked and tense. Thank you, friends. The link to the event and the mini training program is in the Instagram profile bio, in the Telegram channel. We'll also share it there, and I'll repost it. It's also in the profile bio. Thank you. See you soon.